Hello, I'm eria-qreius, the girly that's way too obsessed with the Earthbound archetype, and today I'm gonna showcase the deck I just recently got to Masters 5 with. I've never actually gotten to Masters within a week of the season dropping, mainly because I'm very inconsistent with how often I reach Masters, so after the season reset I first need to get to Diamond. But yeah, I'm still very proud of this, despite it not being that much of a big achievement. But look, I'm playing garbage. It's worth something, honestly. So, today's deck is Blind Second, Earthbound, Bystial Control. Its main goal is to, of course, Blind Second, use your Bystials above disruptions and as just big dudes you can summon freely. And then afterwards, you should be able to create a simplified enough game state for your Earthbounds to come in, summon your other Earthbounds, search your stuff and whatnot, and then use them as synchro material to then overwhelm your opponent, which will have a weakened board state and is gonna be on a top deck situation. And this deck was inspired by the Fiendsmith Bystial control decks you sometimes would see on ladder, except here we're playing Earthbounds, of course, instead of Fiendsmith, which is actually harder to access and less consistent, but you gotta do what you gotta do, a bad deck. And also we're blinding second. The reason I'm hard blinding second is just because the Bystials kinda suck going first. Like, they don't extend on their own, so in Earthbound, I really wouldn't recommend playing Bystials as your only secondary engine, and instead pair it with, say, Metalmorph, Centurion, Azamina, etc. And the reason for this is that the Bystials aren't able to be summoned unless there's already a light or a dark in the grave, which is perfect for blind second scenarios where you can banish, say, an engraver or your opponent's Azamina cards and whatnot, and of course just summon your dudes with 0 cost. Going first, the only targets would just be Sweeper, Lubellian, and 1/1 discarding a dark or a light, which is really not ideal and very inconsistent, so blinding second just guarantees a way to unbrick your stuff. There isn't really much else to say about the basic game plan of the deck because it's so simple but so effective at what it's supposed to do, so let's just get straight into some text. So with Fiendsmith, Azamina, Snake Eyes, Yugioh, White Forest, and Blue Eyes being some of the most popular decks around, I decided to play a bunch of Bystials. Of course, as I said, they're great extenders, but they're also really good disruptions. I am playing 9 Bystials plus 3 Lubellian and Regained for extra grind game. 9 Bystials because that's basically the max amount you can play without screwing up some consistency stuff. You can of course play the 10th Bystial, but you would need to cut something else for that. I originally considered playing 3 Stilgar and 1 extra Saronir instead of Lubellian, but that really backfired in a lot of games because the grind game provided by Lubellian plus Regained is just way too overwhelming for the opponent to win through after simplifying the game state to just top deck scenarios. And like, I honestly can't go back to playing extra Handtraps instead of Lubellian in all honesty. Veiler's a bit of an odd one because like usually Imperm is just strictly better Veiler, but in this case it's a light monster and also a tuner, which does come up in very fringe scenarios to summon Koibalt or Dawn Dragster with your Bystials, but also to just get the Bystials onto the board in the first place. If your opponent isn't playing one of the light or dark decks in the meta, you just use Veiler and are able to still make use of your Bystials, making them not as bricky. And one very minor thing that's worth noting is that it's better than Imperm against exactly Millennium, which I'll talk about later when I discuss matchups. As for the extra deck, there's quite a bit to go through. So let's start with Gremlin and Kraken. I usually wouldn't run them in any other list because they're very unversatile and they don't really come up all too often over other options, say Coral Dragon and just other synchros, literally anything. But in this variant, they actually have a pretty solid amount of good uses. Gremlin usually wouldn't be played because it's very hard for the effect to go through in anything other than a simplified game state, and it's only useful going second, which is very rough for the card that has 0 ways to let itself get undisrupted. But in this variant, we're blinding second, which means Gremlin has always a chance to be useful, and also the name of the game is just Handtrap spam, which means that simplified game states are gonna be very frequent with this deck, and that means that Gremlin just has free leeway to do whatever it wants with the lack of disruptions on your opponent's side. As for Kraken, you usually don't see it in competent lists because it just is a very odd card, because if you aren't using it turn 1 as a part of a YouTube combo that dies to everything and that just needs to run a bunch of bricks, you're making it turn 3. And you know what happens turn 3 with a combo deck like this one? You just kill the opponent. There is no need to make Kraken most of the time because your entire board just has a bunch of attack. You can just slap your opponent in the face and win instantly. So Kraken is just left in a very odd spot, and in this variant it's not as a combo reliant as others, so Kraken just gets to get more value out of its effect to destroy your opponent's stuff, because you aren't going to kill most of the time on exactly turn 2. And also in this variant, since you're you have a slower game plan, you can go for both Gremlina and Kraken in the same match, which does actually come up very often. I was shocked too, but Kraken was a really solid addition. Now on to Coral Dragon. Coral Dragon is perhaps one of the greatest level 6 synchros we've ever had, next to Stardust Charge Warrior, because of its incredible stat line being a level 6 tuner synchro monster, its pop effect being very useful in a lot of scenarios, and its draw effect just being the cherry on top. And especially in this variant, you would assume that with Bystials being level 6 monsters, that Coral Dragon would be great with them, since you can make Legaria draw 2 and pop a card. But weirdly enough, Coral Dragon is actually outclassed by Gremlin in this deck exactly. It's weird to say because Gremlin usually is hot garbage, but Coral Dragon got outclassed because it's still very solid in simplified game states, but you cannot run both of them, and Gremlin just gets more value in the long run. Also, Coral Dragon, the more I played, the less it came up. And in the games that it would come up, you're still gonna lose, because the few games it came up, which was against the Millennium, to try and destroy Dimensional Fissure or Macrocosmos, you're still losing that match because you don't have anything to banish off your Bystials to do your Legaria draw 2 play, which is incredibly awkward, and it feels wrong to say that Coral Dragon is bad, but yeah, I never really needed it in scenarios where it could change the tides of the duel for me, to let me win essentially. Navy Dragon Mech. It sucks. It was horrible in my climb. I first thought about using this over Vermilion because, oh yeah, negation is great going second, surely it will come up. And the problem with Vermilion is just that it's not permanent negation like some other cards are, so it just kinda sits there as a half board breaker that you don't need 90% of the time. Like, most of the time, Vermilion Dragon Mech came up way more often because a pop effect, being able to remove threats entirely rather than neutering them for one singular turn, is essential for winning some games. And of course, Navy can't pop back row like Vermilion can. And plus, Vermilion just has an additional use, which is to add a tuner by destroying itself, which Navy can't do. Navy can sure be destroyed by Baron, but Vermilion could just do that on its own, giving you grind game after, say on turn 2 you use Vermilion to pop something, and on turn 4 you pop it and retrieve any Handtrap or a Earthbound tuner. And the only reason I didn't play Vermilion over Navy in my climb is because I wasted all my SR crafting points on trying to get a Royal Harmonic Synchro fusion, which was a terrible idea, needless to say, and also because I got a Royal Navy Dragon Mech, so you know, I just had to play it. Legitimately though, I can't sugarcoat it. You need to cut Navy for Vermilion Dragon Mech. I feel like I need to mention Psychic and Punisher because it came up more frequently than I actually thought. It's of course just amazing, shockingly, I know. Blinding second, a big beat stick with spot removal is great. And it also leads you to easy OTKs. It's way easier than you'd think to summon. Yeah, I know, Synchro deck with very convenient levels, summoning a conveniently leveled Synchro monster, who would have thought? You can make a Lullaby plus Walker or Griffin plus Walker, for the latter of which can just, you know, summon Walker to guarantee access to End Punisher. And the funniest interaction is against Fiendsmith. So like, if they use Lacrima to try and burn you, you just get 1200 bonus attack on your End Punisher, which is really funny to literally just punish your opponent for just doing the standard line, not knowing what's to come. The last card I feel like I need to mention for the extra deck is Typhon. You wouldn't think that the deck that locks you out of Xyz and Lynx would like to play the Xyz monster, but Typhon is just an incredibly good control tool, and it's very good in simplified game states or to stall certain turns where you don't have a tuner, or if you're disrupted on your tuner, it doesn't even, the restriction on them doesn't matter, so you can just use Typhon freely. Same can be said for SP, which is a bonus mention, but I chose not to run her despite her very fun interaction with Brander Regained, simply because she didn't really come up that often in my games, just because if I didn't get disrupted, I would just make a Synchro, and if I did get disrupted, Typhon usually was more beneficial. Alright then, so let's just get into the matchups. Right, Grasha. In this variant, you would think that since Gremlin is actually really solid and the variant benefits from it, Grasha still isn't good, mainly because of its painful summoning conditions, but especially because it gets outclassed by your other Earthbound fusions that are fighting for the summon. Like Kraken barely makes it onto the list due to being good in niche scenarios on turn 4 and sometimes turn 2, but Grasha isn't summonable turn 2 period, and on turn 4 you'd much rather summon the fusion you haven't already if Gremlin is still alive at that point, or if you have Griffin up, which is very specific, and like Grasha isn't even worth the resources to make it that late into the duel. Alright, there isn't much else to say other than yes, you do have flex spots in Despater and Typhon, but there are even better options to play instead of those two, if you really want to replace them. Now, finally, on to matchups properly. Any light and dark decks are gonna be a piece of cake, honestly, and even non-chaos attribute decks are still gonna have a pretty rough matchup into Handtrap spam with Droll, Maxi, Fuaros, and Veiler just being spammed. So let's just get straight into the harder matchups that I encountered. The first one is, hilariously enough, Millennium. Millennium was a hard matchup, dude. It's just really hard, unplayable even. Like, you need to sack and like hope you draw Veiler or it's a bust. You just die. None of your hand traps other than it just affects the deck. And like, it's setting up a nuke is the biggest problem because you have zero protection into it. You don't play back removal. You just die. And like, the cherry on top is that you can't consistently really make Chaos Angel into disruptions, which just means that you cannot out the stupid Exodia boss monster. It's just miserable. Even with Coral Dragon, to try and snipe their floodgates, which by the way, they play a bunch of floodgates in the form of Dimensional Fissure, Shifter, Macrocosmos, etc. Even with removal, it doesn't even matter because all your dudes are now banished. So like, you can't proceed from there, which is just agony. It hurts my brain. It's such a sack heavy matchup. It's just miserable to play. And speaking of miserable, Tenpai. I hate Tenpai so much. Needless to say, this matchup is actually pain. We're both blinding second, meaning that it's die roll reliant. And the worst part is, if you go first, you need to gamble because you need to open either Sweeper, Lupelion, or 1-for-1 for your Bystials to be extenders. And even then, your opponent is just gonna Boar Breaker you and kill you instantly. And not to mention, none of your hand traps except for exactly Veiler do anything into Tenpai. And like, Tenpai was the sole reason I was actually thinking of playing Ghost Ogre, because Ghost Ogre isn't good against most of the meta except for Azamina decks, which are like fine, but like Azamina still dies to Bystial, so like it's kind of redundant. So it just painfully, no, I hate this stupid deck. Can they please just ban Chandra? Please, Konami. Alright, anyways, let's get into the combos. There are no real set combos for this variant. It's really all about intuition, and actually this is kinda easy. You just need to assess the situation correctly and summon the proper synchros, whilst using the basic Earthbound principles, which are simply to use Harmonic Synchro Fusion to raise ceilings, summon Griffin, try to make Baron if needed, and other stuff. If you want a basic idea for combos, you can check out my other video I posted recently, which was Azamina Earthbound, or just the combo sheet, which I'll put in the description. Anyways, that's gonna be it for the list. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments down below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already to support me on this journey of trying to make Earthbound as viable of an archetype as possible, and to try and make resources for it in the form of my combo sheet and my videos. Have a good one and enjoy the replays.